For 5 years, he'd woken up every morning thinking the same thing. Where was his brother Ryan? Was he alive? Was he dead? Questions without answers. Until that morning. Until the technician loading ammunition into the Apache reached overhead and her shirt rode up slightly, revealing the tattoo on her lower back. A geometric pattern. Numbers. Symbols. Jake Mercer's heart stopped. Because he'd only seen that marking in one place before, in his missing brother's last photograph. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story of hidden identity and brotherhood resonates with you, please consider subscribing for more untold military stories. Forward Operating Base Chimera sits on the edge of the Syrian desert, a sprawl of dust-colored buildings and hardened aircraft shelters where the temperature climbs to 120 degrees by mid-afternoon. The pre-dawn hours are the only time the heat is manageable, which is why the flight line comes alive at 0500 hours each morning. Captain Jake Mercer walks across the tarmac toward his Apache, flight helmet tucked under his arm. He's 30 years old but looks older, the desert sun and 5 years of combat operations having etched lines around his eyes that weren't there when he first deployed. His movements are automatic, refined by hundreds of missions into a ritual that requires no conscious thought. This is his 183rd combat flight. Routine reconnaissance patrol along the northern corridor. Check for insurgent movement. Monitor communications. Return to base. Standard stuff. His co-pilot, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, is already at the aircraft, reviewing the maintenance logs. Webb is younger, 26, still enthusiastic about flying despite 6 months in theater. "Morning, sir," Webb greets him. "Bird's been pre-flighted. Fuel's topped off. Weapons systems green across the board." Jake nods, running his own visual inspection of the Apache. The AH-64 sits like a predatory insect, its stub wings loaded with Hellfire missiles and rocket pods. Everything appears normal. Everything always appears normal until it isn't. That's when he notices the technician. She's working alone at the ammunition bay, feeding a belt of 30mm shells into the chain gun with practiced efficiency. Most of the ground crew work in pairs, laughing and talking while they prep the aircraft. She works in complete silence, her movements economical and precise. Jake has seen her before, hundreds of times over the past 3 years, but never really noticed her. She's part of the background, one of dozens of support personnel who keep the aircraft flying. Young, maybe late 20s, with her hair pulled back in a regulation bun. She wears the same faded uniform as everyone else, moves with the same efficient purpose. Nothing remarkable. Nothing worth remembering. She's invisible. Jake turns his attention back to the pre-flight checklist, running through systems with Webb. Outside air temperature. Fuel quantity. Hydraulic pressure. Everything nominal. The technician finishes loading the ammunition and moves to the rocket pods, checking connections and arming mechanisms. Jake watches her work through the cockpit canopy, noting her attention to detail. She checks things twice that most technicians check once. Runs diagnostics that aren't required by standard protocol. "Who's the ammo tech?" Jake asks Webb casually. Webb glances over. "Chen, I think. Sarah Chen. She's been here forever. Keeps to herself. Good at her job. Never had a malfunction on anything she's touched. Works like a machine." Jake files the information away without much interest. Just another name, another face in the rotation of personnel that keeps the war machine running. Sarah Chen, if that's her real name, finishes her checks and steps back from the aircraft. For a moment, she stands perfectly still, looking up at the Apache with an expression Jake can't quite read. Not pride exactly. Something else. Something that looks almost like sadness. Then she turns and walks away, disappearing into the pre-dawn shadows without a word to anyone. The mission proceeds as planned. Jake and Webb lift off at 0545 hours, joining 2 other Apaches for the patrol route. They fly north along the Euphrates, scanning for heat signatures and radio transmissions. The landscape below is a monotonous blend of tan and brown, dotted occasionally by small villages and irrigation channels. 3 hours later, they return to base without incident. No contact. No targets. Just another routine patrol added to the log. Jake climbs out of the cockpit, his flight suit soaked with sweat despite the air conditioning. The desert heat is already oppressive, shimmering off the tarmac in visible waves. That's when he sees her again. Sarah Chen is working on another Apache at the far end of the flight line, this time loading rockets into the wing pylons. Jake wouldn't have paid attention except that she's reaching up to secure a mounting bracket, and her uniform shirt rides up slightly. Just for a second. Just enough. The tattoo on her lower back is partially visible. A geometric pattern, intricate and precise. Not random art. Something specific. Something designed. Jake's world narrows to that single point. His breath catches. His vision tunnels. Because he knows that pattern. He's seen it before. 5 years ago, in his brother's last message. The coffee thermos slips from his hand, hitting the tarmac with a hollow metallic clang that seems impossibly loud in his ears. Several people turn to look, but Jake doesn't notice. He's frozen in place, staring at the technician who's already lowered her arms, the tattoo disappearing back beneath her uniform. She glances in his direction, makes brief eye contact, then returns to her work as if nothing happened. But something did happen. Everything happened. Jake's mind races backward through 5 years of grief, confusion, and unanswered questions. To the last time he saw his brother. To the classified photograph that showed up in his personal effects after Ryan was declared missing in action. To the symbol on Ryan's arm in that photograph, the same geometric pattern he just saw on this technician's back. "Sir. You okay?" Webb's voice cuts through the static in Jake's brain. He realizes he's been standing motionless for at least 30 seconds, staring at a technician who's now 40 yards away and paying him no attention. "Yeah," Jake manages. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just, dehydrated. Long flight." It's a lie. He's not fine. He's the furthest thing from fine. Because that tattoo isn't supposed to exist. It was part of a classified special operations unit. A unit that officially never existed. A unit his brother Ryan was part of before he disappeared in Yemen 5 years ago. And now it's on the back of an ammunition technician at a forward operating base in Syria. Jake needs answers. The base commander's office is air-conditioned to an almost uncomfortable degree, a sharp contrast to the furnace outside. Jake sits across from Colonel Patricia Vance, a woman in her early 50s whose gray hair and stern expression have earned her the nickname Iron Vance among the junior officers. "Captain Mercer," she says, looking up from her paperwork. "What can I do for you?" Jake has rehearsed this conversation in his head for the past hour, trying to find an approach that doesn't make him sound insane. "Ma'am, I need information on one of our ammunition technicians." "Sarah Chen." Vance's eyebrow raises fractionally. "Is there a problem with her work?" "No, ma'am. Her work is exemplary. I need to see her personnel file." "Why?" Jake hesitates. How does he explain this without revealing classified information about his brother's unit? "Personal reasons, ma'am." "That's not an answer, Captain." "Ma'am, I believe Sarah Chen may have information about my brother's disappearance 5 years ago. I saw something that connects her to his last known unit." Vance leans back in her chair, studying Jake with shrewd eyes. "Your brother was Ryan Mercer. Delta Force operator. Went missing in Yemen during Operation Silent Guardian." "Yes, ma'am. Officially listed as MIA, presumed Kia." "And you think an ammunition technician at this base knows something about that?" "I saw a tattoo, ma'am." A specific pattern that was unique to my brother's unit. It's not something that exists anywhere else. Vance's expression hardens. Captain, if what you're suggesting is true, then this is way above both our pay grades. That operation is still classified at the highest levels. I understand that, ma'am. But I need to know if my brother is alive. A long silence stretches between them. Finally, Vance pulls up something on her computer, types for a moment, then frowns. Sarah Chen. Age 28. Enlisted 4 years ago. Ammunition specialist. Security clearance level 2. Assignment history shows 3 forward operating bases in 2 years, including 9 months here at Chimera. Performance reviews are all exceptional, but... She pauses, scrolling through data. That's odd. What, ma'am? Her file is thin. Very thin. Most personnel files include everything from high school transcripts to parking tickets. Hers has the bare minimum. Almost like it's a cover, Jake finishes. Vance looks up sharply. I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. She closes the file. Captain, I'm going to pretend this conversation didn't happen. Whatever you think you saw, drop it. If Chen is more than she appears, then she's here for reasons we're not clear to know about. Poking around could compromise whatever operation she's involved in. Ma'am, with respect, this is about my brother. Your brother has been missing for 5 years. If he's alive and involved in something classified, the last thing he needs is his brother blowing his cover or the cover of his associates. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Because Vance is right. If Ryan is alive, if he's somehow still operational, then Jake asking questions could get him killed. But the alternative, walking away not knowing, is impossible. Dismissed, Captain, Vance says, her tone making it clear the conversation is over. Jake salutes and leaves, his mind churning with possibilities and implications. For the rest of the day, he finds himself watching Sarah Chen whenever she's in view. She works with the same mechanical efficiency, loading ammunition, performing maintenance, moving from aircraft to aircraft without speaking to anyone. She takes her lunch alone. Never makes eye contact with pilots or other personnel. She's deliberately invisible. And now that Jake is paying attention, he notices other things. The way she positions herself with her back never fully to open spaces. The way her eyes constantly scan her surroundings even while she's focused on technical work. The way she moves, not with the casual slouch of most support personnel, but with a controlled precision that speaks of serious physical training. These aren't the habits of an ammunition technician. These are the habits of an operator. At 1800 hours, Jake follows her at a distance as she finishes her shift. She doesn't head to the barracks like most personnel. Instead, she walks to the perimeter of the base, to a small equipment shed that's barely used. She enters, stays for exactly 5 minutes, then emerges and heads to the mess hall. Jake waits until she's out of sight, then approaches the shed. The door is locked, but it's a standard military lock that yields easily to the tool he carries. Inside, the shed appears to contain nothing but spare parts and maintenance equipment. But Jake has done enough classified work to know what to look for. He checks the walls, the floor, the ceiling. And there, behind a stack of crates in the back corner, he finds it. A hidden compartment built into the floor. Inside, a secure satellite phone. Encrypted communication equipment. And a photograph. The photograph shows 4 people in desert combat gear, faces partially obscured but recognizable. 3 men, 1 woman. Jake's breath catches as he recognizes one of the men. Ryan. His brother. 5 years older than the last time Jake saw him, but unmistakably Ryan. And standing next to him, her face partially hidden behind desert wrap, is Sarah Chen. Jake's hands shake as he studies the photo. This is proof. His brother was alive at least recently enough for this photograph to exist. And Sarah Chen was with him. He carefully replaces everything exactly as he found it and leaves the shed, his mind reeling with implications. That night, Jake can't sleep. He lies in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Sarah Chen, every detail he's noticed. The tattoo. The photograph. The hidden equipment. It all points to one conclusion: Sarah Chen is not an ammunition technician. She's an operator. Part of a classified unit. The same unit his brother was in. But why is she here? What's her mission? And most importantly, where is Ryan? The next morning, Jake decides to take a direct approach. He arrives at the flight line early, before most of the crew. Sarah Chen is already there, as always, performing her pre-dawn routine. Sarah Chen, he says, approaching her directly. She looks up, her expression neutral. Sir. I need to talk to you. About the tattoo on your back. Her face doesn't change, but something shifts in her eyes. A calculation. An assessment. I don't know what you're talking about, sir. The geometric pattern. Lower back. Same pattern my brother Ryan had on his arm. Same pattern that was unique to his special operations unit. Now her expression does change, hardening into something professional and dangerous. Captain, I think you have me confused with someone else. I saw the photograph in your equipment shed. You were standing next to my brother. The words hang in the air between them. For a long moment, Sarah doesn't move. Then she glances around, confirming they're alone, and speaks in a voice completely different from her usual quiet tone. This voice carries authority and weight. You broke into a classified cache. That's a federal offense. My brother has been missing for 5 years. Declared dead. And you have proof he was alive recently. Had proof, she corrects. That equipment will be gone within the hour. And you'll have no evidence this conversation ever happened. Jake steps closer. I don't care about evidence. I care about my brother. Is he alive? Sarah studies him for a long moment, then makes a decision. Come with me. We need somewhere private. She leads him not to the shed, but to a different location entirely, a maintenance hangar that's scheduled for repairs and currently unused. Inside, surrounded by disassembled aircraft parts and silence, she finally speaks freely. My name isn't Sarah Chen. That's a cover identity. My real name is classified, but you can call me Ghost. I'm part of a special operations unit that officially doesn't exist. Your brother Ryan was my commanding officer. Was? She hesitates. Is. Your brother is alive, Captain Mercer. But his situation is complicated. Jake feels his legs weaken. 5 years of grief, 5 years of not knowing, and now confirmation in a single sentence. Where is he? I can't tell you that. The hell you can't. Listen to me, Ghost interrupts, her voice sharp. Your brother is alive, but he's deep undercover in an operation that's taken 3 years to establish. If his cover is blown, he dies. If my cover is blown, the entire operation fails and dozens of people die. Including Ryan. Jake forces himself to breathe. What operation? I can't give you details. What I can tell you is that Ryan's unit was compromised in Yemen 5 years ago. Someone inside our command structure sold us out to hostile forces. Ryan survived, but barely. He's been hunting the traitor ever since, embedded so deep in enemy networks that extraction isn't possible until the mission is complete. And you? I'm his lifeline. His only contact with command. I move from base to base, maintaining cover identities, monitoring communications, passing intelligence. The tattoo you saw. It's an identification mark. There are only 6 people in the world who have it, and we're the only survivors of the Yemen ambush. Jake processes this information, his mind struggling to accept it. Why didn't anyone tell me he was alive? Because he's not. Officially. On paper, your brother died in Yemen. That's the only way the operation could work. If anyone knew he was alive, it would eventually reach the wrong ears. You've lived 5 years thinking your brother was dead. That grief, that loss, it had to be real. Otherwise, you might have acted differently, said something, done something that would tip off the people we're hunting. That's insane. That's special operations. We live in the shadows because that's where the real war is fought. Jake feels anger rising. You let my family mourn him. My mother had a funeral. She cried over an empty coffin. Your brother made that choice, Ghost says quietly. He chose the mission over everything else. Over his family, his life, his identity. That's what operators do. We sacrifice everything so others don't have to. I want to see him. That's impossible. Not until the operation is complete. When will that be? Ghost looks away. I don't know. Soon, maybe. We're close. But I can't promise anything. What's the tattoo? Jake asks. What does it mean? She turns back to him, and for the first time, he sees something vulnerable in her expression. It's coordinates. The location where we were ambushed. The place where 3 of our team members died. We each got the tattoo afterward as a memorial. A promise that we'd never forget them, and that we'd complete the mission they died for. Jake swallows hard. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know you're not just some foreign agent trying to extract intelligence from me? Ghost considers this, then pulls out a small encrypted phone from her pocket. She types something, waits, then shows Jake the screen. It's a text message. 3 words, tell him, Ghost. That's from your brother, she says. Sent through 3 different encryption protocols and 2 satellite relays. He's watching this conversation through surveillance I have set up. He knows you found out. And he's authorizing me to tell you the truth. Jake stares at the message, his throat tight. Can I talk to him? No. Text only. One-way communication. But. She types something else and shows him the screen again. A new message appears, I'm sorry, little brother. I love you. Stay safe. Jake's vision blurs. He hasn't cried in 5 years, not since the memorial service. But reading those words, knowing his brother is alive somewhere, watching this conversation, breaks something open inside him. I need more, he manages. I need to know he's okay. Ghost's expression softens. He's as okay as any of us are in this line of work. Alive. Functional. Focused on the mission. That's all I can tell you. When he comes back, if he comes back, when, Ghost corrects firmly. When he comes back, you'll have your brother again. But until then, you need to go back to believing he's dead. You need to mourn him. Grieve him. Live your life as if he's gone. Because if the wrong people suspect you know something, they'll use you to get to him. I can keep a secret. I'm sure you think you can. But grief acts differently than knowledge. If you're suddenly less sad, less angry, less lost, people will notice. Especially people trained to notice such things. Jake realizes she's right. The relief flooding through him right now, the weight lifting from his chest, it's going to show. He'll have to hide it. Suppress it. Continue playing the role of the grieving brother while knowing the truth. It might be harder than actually grieving. The tattoo, he says, changing the subject. Why did I see it? If you're trying to stay hidden, why expose it? Ghost's jaw tightens. That was a mistake. My shirt rode up when I wasn't paying attention. It happens sometimes after long shifts when I'm tired. I've been more careful since then. So I was never supposed to know any of this. No. But now that you do, we have to manage it. Colonel Vance already flagged your inquiries about me. That drew attention I didn't want. So we're going to do something unconventional. We're going to give you a role in this operation. Nothing operational, nothing that puts you at risk. But something that explains why you and I are talking, why you might be asking questions. It gives you a reason to know things without revealing what you actually know. What kind of role? Ghost pulls out a tablet and shows him a file. You're going to be my handler. On paper, you'll be assigned as liaison between flight operations and special projects. In reality, you'll be my contact point for anything that requires pilot coordination. It's a real assignment that exists at most bases like this. No one will question it. And what do I actually do? Nothing, unless I need you. But it gives us cover to communicate when necessary. And it explains any suspicious behavior on your part. Jake considers this. It's not what he wanted. What he wanted was his brother back. But it's something. It's a connection, however tenuous, to the only family he has left. Okay, he agrees. I'm in. Good. Report to Colonel Vance tomorrow. She'll process the assignment. And Captain? Ghost's expression becomes hard again. If you compromise this operation, if you make any mistake that puts your brother at risk, I will personally ensure you regret it. Family or not. Jake believes her. Understood. 3 weeks pass. Jake settles into his new role, which mostly involves exactly what Ghost said, nothing. He flies his regular missions. Performs his regular duties. And occasionally, very occasionally, Ghost passes him information that needs to be communicated up the chain of command through channels that won't reveal her identity. It's frustrating. He knows his brother is alive, knows he's somewhere out there, but has no contact beyond a single text message. No updates. No assurance that Ryan is safe. Until the night everything changes. It's 0230 hours when Jake's phone vibrates with an encrypted message. Priority code. He's been given an emergency encryption key for exactly this scenario. The message is brief, Hotel 6. Immediate. Come alone. Hotel 6 is a designation for an abandoned airstrip 10 clicks north of the base. Jake dresses quickly, grabs his sidearm, and requisitions a Humvee. 20 minutes later, he's driving through the desert night, headlights cutting through absolute darkness. The airstrip appears as a dark line against darker sand. A single figure stands at the edge, illuminated briefly by his headlights. Ghost. But she's not alone. As Jake approaches on foot, another figure steps out from the shadows. Male, tall, wearing desert combat gear and night vision goggles pushed up on his forehead. Jake's breath catches. Ryan. His brother looks different. Thinner. Harder. 5 years of covert operations have carved away any softness, leaving behind someone who looks like Ryan but moves like a predator. A thick beard covers the lower half of his face, and his eyes carry a weight that wasn't there before. For a moment, neither brother moves. Then Ryan pulls down his face covering and speaks. Hey, little brother. Jake covers the distance between them in 3 strides and pulls Ryan into a fierce embrace. Ryan returns it just as tightly, and for several seconds they stand there in the desert darkness, 2 brothers reunited after 5 years of separation and grief. You're alive, Jake says, his voice rough. Mostly, Ryan replies with a ghost of a smile. They pull apart, and Jake gets a better look at his brother. Ryan carries himself with absolute confidence, his movements precise and controlled. But there's exhaustion in his eyes, a deep weariness that speaks of too many missions and too little rest. We don't have much time, Ghost says, her voice urgent. This meeting is already a massive security risk. Why now? Jake asks Ryan. Why reveal yourself now? Ryan exchanges a glance with Ghost, then sighs. Because we need your help. The operation is reaching its culmination, and we have a problem. What kind of problem? The traitor we've been hunting is here. On this base. Jake feels ice slide down his spine. Who? We don't know yet. But we've narrowed it down to 3 possibilities, all senior officers with access to classified communications. Whoever it is has been feeding intelligence to hostile forces for years. They're responsible for the Yemen ambush that killed our team. They're responsible for dozens of compromised operations. And they're about to escape our net unless we act fast. What do you need from me? Ryan pulls out a tablet showing surveillance photographs. Tomorrow, there's a classified briefing in the command center. Top-level officers only. We've engineered a situation where our 3 suspects will be in the room together. We're going to feed each of them slightly different false information, variations on the same intelligence report. Whichever version gets transmitted to hostile forces will tell us who the traitor is. That's smart, Jake admits. But why do you need me? Because, Ghost says, you're going to be in that briefing as the flight operations liaison. Your new assignment gives you access. And more importantly, you're going to be our eyes in the room. We need someone inside who we can trust absolutely. What am I looking for? Ryan hands him a small device, barely larger than a button. This goes in your watch or pocket. It's a transmitter. We'll be monitoring everything said in that room. But we also need visual confirmation. Watch the suspects. Watch their reactions. See if anyone shows signs of recognition when the false intelligence is presented. Who are the suspects? Ghost pulls up 3 personnel files on the tablet. Colonel Patricia Vance, Major Thomas Reeves, and Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell. All have the clearance, access, and opportunity. One of them is our traitor. Jake studies the photographs. He knows all 3 officers. Vance is the base commander, the woman who'd warned him off investigating Ghost. Reeves is the intelligence officer who briefs most missions. Mitchell runs logistics and communications. This feels surreal, Jake says. One of our senior officers is selling us out. Money and ideology make people do terrible things, Ryan responds. We've been tracking this network for 3 years. It extends beyond just one person. There are handlers, coordinators, financiers. But this base is where the leak originates. Tomorrow, we close that leak. And then what happens to you? Jake asks his brother. Ryan's expression becomes unreadable. Then I continue the mission. We've identified cells in 4 countries that are part of this network. The traitor here is just one piece. So you're not coming home? Not yet. Maybe not for a while. Jake wants to argue, wants to demand his brother leave this life and come back to the family that thinks he's dead. But looking at Ryan, at the determination in his eyes, he knows it would be pointless. Mom thinks you're dead, Jake says quietly. She had a funeral. She still visits your grave. Pain flashes across Ryan's face. I know. Ghost told me. It kills me, Jake. Every day, it kills me. But I made a choice. 3 of my team died in Yemen because someone betrayed us. I owe them justice. I owe every soldier who's been compromised by this network. This is bigger than my family's grief. She deserves to know you're alive. She will. When this is over. When I can come home and stay home, not just for a visit but permanently, then she'll know. But until then, I'm dead. It has to be that way. Jake wants to argue more, but Ghost interrupts. We need to move. Extended exposure increases risk. Ryan grips Jake's shoulder. Tomorrow's briefing is at 1,400 hours. Be there. Watch the suspects. Most importantly, act normal. You're there as flight liaison, nothing more. Don't draw attention to yourself. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Ryan pulls him into another brief embrace. I'm proud of you, little brother. The pilot you've become, the man you are. Don't think I haven't been watching. You've been monitoring me. Ryan smiles faintly. You're my brother. Of course I've been watching. Every mission report. Every commendation. You're one of the best Apache pilots in theater. Our parents would be proud. Dad is proud. He doesn't know about you, though. Good. Keep it that way. For now. They separate, and Ryan melts back into the shadows like he was never there. Ghost lingers for a moment longer. Thank you for trusting us, she says. I know this is difficult. Just bring him home safe, Jake responds. That's the plan. Then she too disappears into the darkness, leaving Jake alone in the desert night with a transmitter in his pocket and the weight of tomorrow's operation on his shoulders. The briefing room is exactly as Jake remembers from previous classified sessions, windowless, soundproofed, with a large screen at one end and a conference table surrounded by high-backed chairs. Security is tight. Everyone entering is checked for recording devices, phones are confiscated, and armed guards stand at the single entrance. Jake takes his seat near the middle of the table, the transmitter concealed in his watch. Around him sit the senior officers of FOB Chimera, including the 3 suspects. Colonel Vance sits at the head of the table, her expression stern and focused. Major Reeves is to her right, already reviewing notes on a tablet. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell is across from Jake, chatting quietly with another logistics officer. None of them look like traitors. They all look like professionals doing their jobs. The briefing begins at exactly 1,400 hours. Major Reeves stands and begins presenting intelligence on enemy movements in the northern sector. Standard stuff, routine reconnaissance data. Then the briefing shifts. We've received intelligence, Reeves says, about a high-value target possibly operating in this region. Details are scarce, but satellite imagery has identified unusual activity at these coordinates. He displays a map showing 3 different locations, each marked with specific coordinates and timestamps. Jake knows from Ryan's briefing that each of the 3 suspects has been given slightly different versions of this intelligence. The locations vary by just a few kilometers, but enough that they can be tracked. Whichever location gets transmitted to hostile forces will identify the traitor. Jake watches the 3 suspects carefully, noting their reactions. Colonel Vance leans forward, studying the map with professional interest. Her expression doesn't change. No sign of recognition or unusual focus. Major Reeves continues presenting, his voice steady and authoritative. But Jake notices something. Reeves keeps glancing at one specific location on the map, returning to it repeatedly even though he's supposedly presenting all 3 equally. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell takes notes on a tablet, her fingers moving quickly. But she's not looking at the screen. She's looking at her tablet, typing more than someone taking simple notes should need to. The briefing continues for another 20 minutes, covering logistics, air support requirements, and operational timelines. Throughout it all, Jake watches the 3 suspects, looking for any sign. When the briefing concludes, officers file out in small groups, continuing conversations about the presented intelligence. Jake lingers, staying close to Mitchell as she collects her materials. That's when he sees it. Mitchell's tablet screen, visible for just a second as she closes her case, shows not notes but a communication program. A message partially visible before the screen locks, package confirmed. Coordinates received. Jake's blood runs cold. He catches Major Reeves' eye across the room and gives the slightest nod. Reeves' expression doesn't change, but he understands. Mitchell is the traitor. Events move quickly after that. Jake doesn't see what happens next, isn't privy to the arrest or interrogation. But that night, Ghost contacts him with an update. They meet again in the abandoned hangar, this time without Ryan. Mitchell confessed, Ghost says without preamble. Once we showed her the evidence, she broke. She's been selling intelligence for 3 years, motivated by debt and ideology. The network she was working with extends to 4 countries, just like we suspected. And Ryan? Already moving on the other cells. With Mitchell's information, we can roll up the entire operation within weeks. So he's still not coming home. Ghost's expression softens. No. But this phase is ending. Another few months, maybe a year, and he'll be able to extract. The mission won't be complete, but his part in it will be. Can I tell my family? Not yet. But soon. When Ryan is safely extracted and debriefed, when there's no remaining threat, then you can tell them. Your mother deserves to know her son is alive. Jake nods, accepting what he cannot change. What happens to you? I move on. New base, new identity, new mission. That's the life I chose. The tattoo, Jake says. The coordinates. Will you ever go back there? To the place you were ambushed? Ghost is quiet for a long moment. Someday. When this is all over. Ryan and I and the other survivors will go back. We'll put up a memorial for the 3 who didn't make it. Close that chapter properly. And until then? Until then, we carry them with us. Every mission. Every day. That's what the tattoo means. It's not just coordinates. It's a promise. Jake understands. Some promises are too important to break, even when keeping them costs everything. Thank you, he says. For telling me the truth. For risking the operation to let me know my brother is alive. Ryan insisted. He said you deserve to know, whatever the risk. That's the kind of man he is. That's why we follow him. Ghost extends her hand. Jake shakes it, feeling the strength in her grip. Stay safe, she says. And when your brother comes home, be ready. He'll need time to adjust. To remember who he was before all this. I'll be ready. Ghost turns to leave, then pauses. Captain Mercer. Your brother talks about you. In the quiet moments between missions, when we're waiting for intelligence or extraction, he tells stories. About growing up together. About your first flight. About the day you got your wings. You're what keeps him human in this work. Don't ever think you're not important to him. Then she's gone, disappearing into the shadows like the ghost she's named for. Jake stands alone in the hangar, processing everything that's happened. His brother is alive. The traitor has been caught. The mission continues. And somewhere out there, Ryan is still fighting, still hunting, still keeping promises to fallen comrades. Jake returns to his quarters and lies on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he'll fly another mission. He'll play his role, maintain his cover as the grieving brother who doesn't know the truth. But now, when he flies, he'll know that somewhere below, his brother is watching. Protecting. Fighting battles that will never be acknowledged, earning medals that will never be awarded, living a life that officially doesn't exist. And someday, maybe soon, maybe years from now, Ryan will come home. The war will end, the mission will conclude, and 2 brothers will stand together again, not in a desert at midnight but in daylight, in front of family, with nothing left to hide. Until then, Jake will carry his own promise. To protect Ryan's secret. To honor the sacrifice. To remember that some heroes wear uniforms, and others wear invisible armor made of dedication and duty. The tattoo on Ghost's back flashes through his mind one more time. Coordinates to a place where promises were made and lives were lost. A permanent reminder that some debts can never be fully repaid. But they can be honored. And that, Jake realizes, is enough. 6 months later. Jake is in the mess hall when his phone buzzes with an encrypted message. It's been weeks since he last heard from Ghost or Ryan. The operation has gone dark, no contact, no updates. The message is brief, package delivered. Coming home. Jake's hand trembles as he reads it again. Package delivered. The network is dismantled. The mission is complete. Ryan is coming home. 3 days later, Jake receives official notification. He's being recalled to the United States for family emergency leave. No explanation given. Just orders to report immediately. He arrives at a nondescript office building in Virginia 2 days after that. Security is intense, clearances are checked 3 times, and he's escorted through multiple checkpoints before being led to a small conference room. Ryan is there. He's cleaned up, the beard shaved, wearing a proper uniform instead of combat gear. He looks exhausted but whole. Alive. They embrace without words, holding on longer than is strictly military protocol. When they finally separate, Ryan is smiling, a genuine smile that reaches his eyes for the first time in years. It's done, Ryan says. I'm officially alive again. Paperwork's being processed. In 72 hours, I'll be restored to active duty with my real identity. After debriefing and leave, I'll be reassigned to a training position. No more field operations. You're really coming home. I'm really coming home. Mom. We're flying to see her tomorrow. Together. You get to watch her find out her son isn't dead after all. Jake laughs, the sound catching in his throat. She's going to kill you for putting her through 5 years of grief. Probably. But I think she'll forgive me eventually. They spend the next hour catching up properly, filling in 5 years of separation with stories and memories. Ryan talks about missions he can now discuss, places he's been, close calls he survived. Jake talks about their father, their mother, the family that's been incomplete for so long. Ghost appears briefly to say goodbye. She's being reassigned, moving on to whatever comes next in her classified career. But before she leaves, she pulls up her sleeve and shows them both the tattoo one more time. The promise is kept, she says quietly. They're avenged. The mission is complete. Ryan traces the coordinates with one finger, his expression solemn. We'll go back someday. Put up that memorial. I'll be there, Ghost promises. Then she's gone, back to whatever shadows she operates in, carrying her invisible armor and her permanent promises. The next day, Jake and Ryan drive together to their family home. Their mother is in the garden when they arrive, tending flowers she planted 5 years ago, after Ryan's memorial service. She looks up at the sound of the car, sees Jake walking toward her, smiles. Then she sees who's with him. The scream that tears from her throat is equal parts anguish and joy. She runs to Ryan, collapsing into his arms, crying so hard she can't breathe. He holds her, his own tears flowing freely now, 5 years of separation and grief pouring out in a single moment. I'm sorry, he keeps saying. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. You're alive, she manages between sobs. You're alive. My boy is alive. Jake stands back, giving them their moment, his own vision blurred with tears. This is what it was all for. The sacrifice. The secrets. The invisible war. This moment of reunion makes all of it worthwhile. Later, much later, after explanations and more tears and eventually laughter, the three of them sit together on the porch as the sun sets. Their mother sits between her 2 sons, holding both their hands, occasionally looking at Ryan as if to confirm he's really there. The tattoo, she says eventually. The one Jake told me about. Can I see it? Ryan hesitates, then rolls up his sleeve, revealing the geometric pattern with its embedded coordinates. What does it mean? She asks. It means I made a promise, Ryan says. To people who didn't make it home. And now that promise is kept. She traces the pattern gently. Can you tell me about them? Someday. When it's fully declassified. But for now, just know they were heroes. And they'd be happy to know I'm finally home. She nods, accepting what she can't know, grateful for what she has back. As darkness falls, Jake looks at his brother, really looks at him. The scars, visible and invisible. The weight he carries. The cost of the invisible war he fought. But also the peace. The completion. The knowledge that justice was served and promises were kept. Some heroes wear medals. Some wear tattoos. And the best ones wear invisible armor made of duty, sacrifice, and unbreakable promises to fallen friends. Ryan is home. The war continues somewhere, fought by other shadows, other ghosts. But for this family, for this moment, the war is over. And that's all that matters. Sometimes a tattoo is more than ink on skin. Sometimes it's a promise. A memorial. A mission that spans years and costs everything. The classified geometric pattern that started this story represented courage, sacrifice, and brotherhood that transcends life and death. It connected a grieving brother to a sibling he thought he'd lost. It marked warriors who fought battles that will never be acknowledged, earned medals they'll never wear, and kept promises that cost them everything. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more untold military stories. Like, comment, and enable notifications so you never miss a mission. Thank you for watching, and remember, the most important battles are often fought by people whose names we'll never know, wearing invisible armor, keeping promises we'll never hear about.